Today, I wanted to talk on one of the most basic teachings of Buddhism, and it's a sutra called the Mindfulness of Breathing Sutra. Uh, we're going to be starting a 3-week practice period at Hokyoji tomorrow. Some of you will be there through all of it and part of it. And what this sutra does is, I believe it must be one of the very original teachings of the Buddha, myself, along with the mindfulness, the 4 foundations of mindfulness. So I'll just go back. We're going to be reading this part of it in the evening every day during the practice period. So what it says is, thus I have heard on one occasion, the fortunate one, that's the translation I like to use myself by Glenn Wallace, was living in Savatthi in the Eastern Park in the palace of Migada's mother, together with many very well-known elder disciples. One thing that struck me as I was rereading this sutra earlier today and yesterday, was, okay, every now and then something just jumps out at me like it hasn't before. And in this particular case, what jumped out at me is he's living in a palace. I mean, does that really mean a palace by our standards? And who's Migada? Who's the palace of Migada's mother? So I don't know the answers to those questions, but I think they're interesting to consider. How did it happen that he's in this place? And apparently the lodgings are a little more more privileged than what the rest of the monks might be living in. So I think that's just something to consider, that through the practice that this person did, called the Buddha, gifts became available as he practiced more and more. And he was together with some of his very well-known disciples. The list goes on with Shariputra, Moggallana, Kashyapa, Kashana, and others. And on that occasion, some of the elder bhikkhus had been teaching and instructing new bhikkhus. Sometimes they were teaching 20, 30, or 40 other bhikkhus. And this also is very interesting to me. So they have this assembly going on, and it's just not the Buddha who's teaching. It's like the elder disciples are teaching the younger monks. And to me, that seems like a very kind of democratic society or assembly that the Buddha has created. And then there was a certain occasion called the Upasafa, day of the 15th, on the full moon night of the Pavarana ceremony. The fortunate one was seated in the open, surrounded by the Sangha of bhikkhus. Then, surveying the silent Sangha of bhikkhus, he addressed them thus. I'm going to go back a bit. I've talked about this several times in previous lectures, but um, this the Pavarana Sutra, our ceremony. We don't do it at Hokyoji, but maybe someday we will. But it's after you practice together for 3 months. Each participant in the assembly goes and sit in the middle of a circle and admonishes the other practitioners to please tell me how I might improve my practice. So it's that would be quite an interesting ceremony to have, I believe. And again, it's very brave, very brave. So the Buddha addressed the assembly, saying, "Bhikkhus, I am content with this practice. My mind is content with this practice. So arouse still more energy to attain the unattained, to achieve the unachieved, to realize the unrealized." I'll show wait here for what I believe is another month. It's so hard for me to figure out exactly, but I think it's another month. Specifically, he calls it the Komundi full moon of the fourth month. The footnotes don't really tell me if it's another month, but I suspect it is. So the bhikkhus of the countryside heard this, and they said they'd like to go there. And so more people arrived. And occasion was happening, and they knew it was quite special. So then the assembly strived even harder. The elder bhikkhus taught more intensively. And then on that occasion of the full moon night of the Komundi moon, the fortunate one was seated in the open, surrounded by the Sangha of bhikkhus. Surveying the silent Sangha, he said this: "Because this assembly is free from prattle, this assembly is free from chatter. It consists purely of heartwood." And I like to stop there for a minute. If someone were to get up and give a talk today and say, "Oh, this assembly is consists purely of heartwood," we would basically not exactly know what that means. But in Buddha's time, wood was used in everyday life for many, many different things. And it was the heart of the wood that was this very special kind of wood that you would make furniture from and use, very discriminately. So he's saying this assembly consists purely of heartwood. Such an assembly as this is worthy of gifts, worthy of hospitality, worthy of offerings, worthy of reverential salutation, an incomparable field of merit for the world. Such is this Sangha of bhikkhus, such is this assembly. Such an assembly that a small gift given to it becomes great, and a greater gift becomes greater. Such an assembly as this is rare for the world to see. Such an assembly as this would be worth journeying many leagues with a travel bag to see. Such is this assembly. Things are changing, I think, and again, we don't know to what degree yet, but it feels like things are changing again at Hokyoji, in which possibly we might take on another big project. And the real reason I picked this sutra to talk about today is because the only way we can do what we're doing at Hokyoji by all these gifts that we're receiving is just go back to this simple practice of breathing. That's breathing in and out, being aware of our mindfulness of breathing. There's nothing else that we do at Hokyoji that's basically has any other value than that. You know, we can add things like, well, being kind to people, but that all comes with our breathing too. Awareness of breathing. We think it's such a small thing, but this sutra really tells us that this is the foundation of our practice, just becoming aware of our breathing, aware of it. Oh, okay. I do like these little things like such an assembly as this would be worth journeying many leagues with a travel bag. I've read other I've read other translations that leave out that travel bag. But I think in the original it must be there because why would anyone say that if it weren't in the original? So it's just a little detail that's it's very interesting to consider. So in this next paragraph, I'd like to for us to examine and maybe even we'll see it. I think I'd like to have a little discussion about it. I'll stop and ask you all what you think this means. The fortunate one says, in this Sangha of bhikkhus, there are bhikkhus who are arhants with taints destroyed, who have lived the holy life, done what had to be done, laid down the burden, reached their own goal, destroyed the fetters of being, and are completely liberated through final knowledge. There are such bhikkhus as this in this assembly. Um, what what does that say to you, that paragraph?
What it says to me that if they're still there, there's still
I'll
some
read it again.
work to be done.
In this Sangha, there are people who have destroyed the taints, who have lived the holy life, done what had to be done, laid down the burden, reached their own goal, destroyed the fetters of being, and are completely liberated through final knowledge. Anyone have any idea what that is about? Well, I guess not. Well, somebody's okay, Jushin, what do you
I'll
think?
take a guess. Well, yeah, I think it pertains to the.
And I can't believe I'm telling the PhD in data communications that he's muted, but I
I
guess
am
I
not,
am.
but you can't hear me.
Or is he not? Is there? No, yeah. Okay. What does that mean? That we can't hear anybody except me? Do we have a techno glitch somewhere?
I might have a glitch in the matrix. Can you hear me now?
Why
Susanna?
doesn't someone else try saying something?
Yeah.
We can hear Jushin. You're the only one who can't hear.
But it seems like are other people hearing things? Oh, you heard Jushin. It's only me that's not hearing Jushin, huh? Okay, great. What does that mean? I don't have my volume turned up or what? Yes, I do. Hmm.
So
What am I
now we have two questions.
Okay, how all of a sudden I heard I didn't do anything. Now I'm hearing you,
Can you hear
Rush.
me now?
Yeah.
Oh,
What
okay.
happened? Okay. All right.
Causes and conditions.
Yeah. Okay. We'll settle on that for the time being.
Yeah, I don't know. Even I don't know. As I like to say, I don't support software I didn't write.
All right.
I knew Rushin would like that.
Yeah.
Uh,
Okay.
so I think it relates to the sort of quandary or discussion we had at the winter practice period in 2023 when we talked about that it was when you think of the aggregates as the attachment to the aggregates, the attachment to experience, as some people have said. Because I know Dozen started, I don't know if you heard Dozen, but Dozen said that they still had work because they were still there. Uh, and I might suggest that that isn't the case because the Buddha was still there too, and that they have identified no self. Like no self has become, and we can argue about what that might be or discuss what that might be, but that they have realized no self and therefore they have no taints or whatever that might be as well, which really pushes the answer around. But that's my stab at it.
Yeah. And actually, as you said that, I would say the work they had to do was to teach others if there's work. So, but you read something like that and who would actually be able to get up and say that, in front of a group of people? I mean, really think about it. Could any one of you say that? Uh, I mean, I'm just like looking at this. There are people who have lived the holy life, done what had to be done, um, laid down the burden. Now, we did talk about that at length in a former uh, practice period or something. I don't know. It was the first chapter. Well, it was, I don't know where it was, but it was in a part of the Pali Canon called Laying Down the Burden. And we talked about that at length. So that comes up again. So anyway, it's just, you know, it, it's kind of a real powerful statement there. And just think if actually someone were saying that, just had the confidence or whatever in this practice that could get up in front of an assembly and say that. Rushin, you had your hand up for a second.
Well, for one thing, I think it says the Buddha is saying this program works. This should be encouraging that we have people here who have accomplished this because they followed my instruction, the Buddha's instruction. So
Mhm. Yeah, it's just I mean, we might read over that and think, oh, yeah, okay, what's next? For me, it kind of stops me a little bit. Say, well, they've done what had to be done. I have to admit, I'm very partial. I have a real attachment to that phrase. What needed to be done has been done. I mean, just think if that could be what you could say, at any point during your life. Everything that needed to be done has been done. So, yes, John, yes. No, I'm not hearing you.
Okay, so the other thought, I mean, and another thought is that if you just reread the paragraph, what it says, it's also in a certain sense instruction. So I mean, he's saying, if you've done, I help me out, Dokai, with reading the.
Well, yeah, if you
It's
laid down the burden,
Yeah,
read.
so there you go. Lay down the burden, needed to do what you needed to do, that sort of thing. It's kind of instructions about how to get to um, a place, so to speak. I mean,
Like that, yeah. And what it also says too is that this person, the Buddha, has confidence that you can do this. It's kind of like instruction too. But there is, I haven't said it, but what I do believe almost in all of these sutras that he delivers is at the bottom of it all, he's it's guided meditation. That's what I think is happening. I think especially if we go through the rest of the sutta, he there's something that person did that reached very deep inside of those who he spoke to, at least many, many people. And I believe that he could say this in a way that people really believed it, even if they didn't know it for themselves. Exactly. And he's basically speaking to everyone in this assembly. There are those who have actually done this. They've laid down the burden. They're here within us. So it's not something outside. It's not like somebody else, down the street or whatever. They're right here. It's right here for all of us. I think that's a very important thing to consider. Yes, Dozen.
I guess my question that arises from that is what about the constant arising and falling? Like, is this, I, I don't, my experience is very limited, but it seems like I have a hard time believing in complete and a finalization of this project, of a complete and final extinguishing for causes and conditions to never arise again in this moment. It just seems like it's constantly a wave.
Mhm.
And so that's what comes up for me.
Well, it comes up for me too. But that's not to say maybe it's just because there's something you and I don't understand completely. Maybe it's possible. Buddha seems to say it is. And I'd like to, Dogen says something interesting. He says, we can only see the truth as far as our eye can see it. It's like if we can only see to a certain place, then we'll only go that far as we can see. But there might be a whole lot more we're not seeing that actually existing right here, right now. It's very possible. In fact, don't you think it couldn't be any other way than that? So, but what I'm saying is sometimes the mind that we ordinarily know when we hear these things will say, no, that's not possible. Just like you're saying, isn't there always arising conditions? Well, that's because we've never known anything else but that constant arising and falling of conditions. But maybe there's something we need to go further to experience where there isn't that phenomenon. I had a rebuttal. Okay, Jushin, I think you have a rebuttal in mind. Okay.
Well, I'm just going to question as to whether that's the actual project or not. It's not. I don't. For myself, I don't see the project as the ending of arising causes and conditions, but a failure to attach to them,
Okay.
which leads to greed, hate, and delusion. And whether that can be permanent or not, that's a really good question as to whether it is a constant battle or is that one time you flip the switch and you are just not attached to anything.
Yeah, I agree with Jushin's point of view that I think it's the relationship to causes and conditions that is part of the transformation. Because we know that Mara visited Buddha all throughout his life. I mean, his attitude towards Mara changed over time, right? So the causes and conditions, Mara shows up all the time, but your relationship
Yeah,
changes.
that's very interesting that's a very interesting phenomena in the sutras that Mara comes along, you know, even throughout Buddha's life. I'm not sure how many times and when, and even if I think it's hard for scholars to actually figure out chronologically, you know, when that might have happened. But we see that happening. And it might just suggest that still Buddha was working on a journey, you know, through his whole life about what this awakening is about. Because I think that's a metaphor. Mara's showing up is Buddha's getting confused about something or something, you know, even with his profound degree of enlightenment, there's something happening that is kind of getting him, let's say, off track or something. Not quite sure what it would be, but it it doesn't indicate that there's this perfect sublime state that we attain and it never ever goes away. That's what I think it indicates. But it's just, well, how do we still keep dealing with the confusions and well, everything. I mean, uh, it's all about it comes down to these skandhas. You know, we are attached to this thing called me or perceived by me. Like every time, you know, someone like cuts my neck open, it's like, so oh, hang on a minute. This is not supposed, this isn't part of the picture. So, but you know, it makes a difference. You start, you know, really getting, oh man, this life I'm living is not about me. And that's kind of a profound revelation. There's nothing personal about being alive in this world. And we create quite a little story around that, how personal it is. So, and we don't really realize it, I think, until, well, you know, some it, you know, the Buddha starts out very importantly is our breathing. You know, okay, let's talk. Then, you know, we'll go into the body. Well, someone makes an assault on your body and that wakes you up a little bit. You know, this body here is not going to be here forever. So that's, we need to wake up to that. And bottom line is, how do we do that? It's just constantly goes back to this breathing, breathing in and out, just awareness of this moment. That's how we find refuge or deliverance from all of that suffering.
If I may add something that Carl wrote in the chat box.
Okay. Did he write something there? I didn't see anything. Okay.
Yes, sir. He says, greed, anger, and ignorance arise endlessly. It is our habitual reactivity that can cease. Mara is temptation always visiting.
Okay. Yeah, well, that's good enough. Just, I mean, that'd be fine with me. I don't react to anything. It's like, okay, greed, anger, and ill will come up, but I don't, I'm not gonna kind of react, even though if it comes up, there's not a reaction taking place. I can live with that. Any other comments here?
The winter practice period at Upaya basically talks along parallel lines. So I'm going to quote something that Kaz Tanahashi said in one of his talks. He said, consider changing our relationship to problems and hindrances as the territory of our practice rather than impediments to our practice. So it's just a matter of, it is kind of personal. I mean, it's your personal territory, but once you see it, see through it, it's becomes less personal. It's like, and you can change this relationship to seeing as problems and hindrances. You see this is your life.
Rushin, can you read that again? That just what you said. I have my phones on now, so
Okay.
I can hear a lot better. Thank you.
Consider changing our relationship to problems and hindrances as the territory of our practice rather than impediments to our practice.
Yeah. I believe that is myself kind of the bottom line.
And this from the class on Katagiri with karma, this is really in line with what Katagiri is thinking about, how we're not going to understand, but the fact that we don't understand gives us the vitality, the energy to continue. That's the source of our energy, is the fact that we're not doing really well. We can't understand. So this is what moves us forward towards understanding, towards a different kind of understanding.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments?
I have a quick comment on, it seems like it's almost paradoxical to like be in the body with the body, but also make it impersonal. So I kind of wonder if you could maybe speak a little more to that, because it seems like if you're more conscious of your body, that is almost likely to cause more attachments and more, make it a more personal thing than if you weren't aware of it.
Yeah, I get that question. And so, well, I'm going to go back to breathing, because we start with I don't think it really matters how many sessions we've done or how long we've done this practice. When I sit down and do a period of zazen, usually things feel like they're moving around quite a bit, whatever it is. So when I start doing the breathing practice, I will know, okay, I'm breathing in, I'm breathing out. I'll have that kind of deal. However, the thing that's very interesting about that practice, or the practice of mindfulness itself, is that if we're doing it very ardently and sincerely and with full attention, the part about I'm doing something drops off. I mean, yeah, I begin, okay, I'm breathing in, I'm breathing out, I'm breathing in, I'm breathing out. But if I just keep concentrating on that, the I part starts to fade away. And then there's just kind of a, a breathing thing that's happening, but I don't even call it breathing. It's like something's happening, but yeah, I mean, it's not complete and total, like, I'm gone. But there's a place where you can go where you're saying this really isn't about me. I mean, when you see the I part drop away, there is absolutely nothing about us being alive in this world that's personal. Um, and it's just other than, yeah, we are persons. So I mean, so it's not to say that we can let go of our responsibilities and we have to be accountable for everything we do. So that's the paradox, I think, too. But it's not unrelated to your question. Would you like to explore this more, Bo?
No, that was helpful. Thank you.
Oh, okay. Jushin.
Yeah, I just wanted to add it when you're talking about the breathing and then losing the I am breathing part. I think that it meshes with I think one of Katagiri Roshi's talks where he's pressed by a student on what all this is about, and
Mhm.
he says this is basically he talks about flow and flow
Flow.
psychology, yeah,
Mhm.
which is very much what you're
Yeah.
talking about, and I think it even comes up in the Pali Canon, but also I think there's you still, even though it's personal, there just are things outside your control. Like this is me, but I cannot control old age, sickness, and death. I can't control the changing. And what is our response in the face of that uh, to live a good life? What's a good life? And that
Mhm.
response to that. And I think that's what attracts me to Buddhism in general, is what the answer to that question is.
Yeah, well, I think there's something at the bottom of it that's just about fear myself. Uh, and I've read various places where even great Zen masters, they talk about fear, and Buddha did too in one sutra, only one, but that was before he was enlightened. But anyway, he had, this fear, and he said, "Why do I always dwell thinking that fear and dread will come upon me?" This was before he was walking, it's one of my, I love that line that he recognized it in himself, that there's this, why do I always dwell thinking that fear and dread will come upon me? And that's the Buddha talking. And so he decided he would just face that fear and dread when it came upon him. So, I mean, yeah. And then he also said, there's four fears and four basic fears in life. One is fear of death, one is the fear of old age, and the other is the fear of losing your reputation. And then the other one is the fear of speaking publicly. So I kind of like to keep those in mind because they're all about your sense of self just disintegrating. Even public speaking, we have this idea that oh, I want to give a good talk. And then if we, depending on how we react to that, did we succeed or did we fail or all that? So all comes back to like a sense of fear. So the other thing that really helps me sometimes if I'm going to give a talk is to just think, really what I'm doing here is not about me. What I'm saying isn't about me personally. It's just so then I can kind of relax with it a little bit. Yes, Rushin.
So this doesn't show up in any of the books, and I was actually there when this happened. So, and I've shared it a couple times, but I'm not sure I've shared it with this group. But there was a woman who asked a question after one of Katagiri's talks, and she had just started Zen practice, and she was saying that she was so self-conscious that she could barely do anything anymore, that it was overwhelming her.
Mm-hmm.
And Katagiri said, more. And she was just shocked. She said, you mean I should be more self-conscious? And he said, yeah, you should be more self-conscious. And it's like, at some point, you're going to break through, right? But she never showed up
Again.
Again.
Okay, I'm not, yeah. Okay. Sometimes that's just the way it goes. You have any further thoughts about that, Rushin? I mean, it's what was that?
I love that story because that's the way it works. I mean, when I started Zen practice, my field of vision changed, everything changed, my relationship to everything changed. It was a little overwhelming at times, but then the support of it started coming in, right? So it's like, I think Jushin and I agree about all these, there's all these sensory systems going on that there's so much going on. We're not aware of everything that's going on, but there's a lot of stuff going on. And it's very supportive in a way. And it has the identity of you kind of is part of that, but it's not all of that that's going on.
Right. It's kind of like just doing this practice for 30 or 40 years. You don't know how it's actually working. I mean, you can try to figure it out, but we don't know. But it's not working in the same general sense that we normally think things work. So we're changing, but we're not really aware how we're changing. Because we still see our greed and anger arise continuously. We probably I think that's what the more is about. Well, it's just I see that more and more, my greed and anger. But also, I think what's happening is I still don't react that much. I just see it more. Just poof, comes up, comes up, comes up. So that might be the more part, how you just become more and more aware of everything that happens every moment in our bodies and our minds.
Hey, any more thoughts?
We're at 10:18. I think it's been a good discussion. I don't know what more we're going to say, that we're going to resolve the issue and become done what had to be done, and all that. Yes, Jushin.
I'll add one. So this is in the general vein of it not being impersonal and impersonal. I think especially as Buddhists, it's kind of a hard line to keep. So my favorite exchange before he passed away was Norm Macdonald, the comedian. Neil deGrasse Tyson had posted on Twitter something to the effect that, some of the things we often say in Buddhism, something to the effect that, it's not personal, the universe is impersonal. And the comedian Norm Macdonald replied, "Is that's not true. I'm part of the universe and I care."
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's always the case that however we posit anything, the other side, there's another side. So it's always that way. So if I say something, it's not personal, well, there's the other side. Well, it is personal. I mean, and we can say, yes, it's personal. It's personal to be alive. And you said, well, actually, it's not. So I mean, it's like the idea of what we have. Whatever idea we have this way, there's always the other side that they're existing simultaneously. That's why the whole practice that we're doing is actually to just be able to see that sometimes is, okay, I have an idea that it's personal. Then I have an idea it's not personal. It's just these things that are arising continuously. And bottom line, well, no, not the bottom line. We can say, well, it's not personal and it is personal. So I mean, we can say both, and of course, then we get into the tetralemma if we really want to, kind of get into it. What's both and it's not, it's neither, whatever, you're just trying to dislodge the logical mind that's trying to grasp a particular idea. So anyway, well, should we call it for today? Does that sound good?
That sounds good to me.
All right.
Thank you very much, Dokai, for your lovely discussion and talk. Upcoming events, we have the winter practice period starting Monday. The first 2 weeks will be teachings on the Diamond Sutra, and Onryu will be here for the second week. And week 3, we have Brad Warner and Dokai teaching Katagiri Roshi. And then in March, we are closed. Of course, like us and support us on Facebook and Instagram. And there's a donation link in the chat. And we can close with the 4 vows.
Can we get a weather report is there snow on the ground at Hokyoji?
There is snow, but it is rapidly melting. There's maybe an inch left, and it's more really turned into mud than snow.
Okay, so expect mud.
Expect mud later in the week. I mean, I think it's supposed to be like highs of 42. So
okay,
I expect a lot of it to be muddy.
Yeah, Rushin, it'll be soupy, and if you if anyone is concerned about their vehicle getting in here, just let us know, and we can meet you at the head of the driveway. So it's going to be County 5 also, as there's ruts in it, so it's like spring already.
But it's supposed to freeze at night, right? So it's going to be in the 20s overnight, so that should be a treat.
Yeah, it freeze at night and then warm up during the day. It's tricky business.
Carl says dicey. It's dicey.
It is dicey. Okay, we can close with the 4 vows.
Okay.
Beings are numberless. I vow to free them. Delusions are inexhaustible. I vow to end them. Dharma gates are boundless. I vow to enter them. The Buddha way is unsurpassable. I vow to realize it. Okay, thank you all.
Thank you.